Welcome, everybody, to the final weekend of what has been an absolutely scintillating DTM 2022 season. I'm Chris Hartley, here to talk you through all of the action, and rest assured there will be plenty of it this weekend with the championship absolutely wide open. Free Practice 1 coming up here in sunny, pretty warm conditions for the time of year at Hockenheim. It looks like being a dry weekend, and well, that's a bit of a blessing given the weather conditions we've endured over the last couple of weekends, with rain affecting things at the Red Bull Ring and potentially on and off at Spa, and then we had the fog at the Nürburgring. But it looks like it's going to be dry conditions for the championship decider. Mathematically, we've still got 10 drivers that could win the championship, but you've got 5 real hefty contenders there, as we saw from the VT at the start of the Free Practice live stream. We've got 5 drivers covered by just 16 points in the championship. Sheldon van der Linde has his nose in front. He arrives here off the back of a couple of frustrating weekends. However, he arrives here with the championship lead. Effectively an 11-point head start over everybody else. He's got 130 points. Lucas Auer has got 119 points, 11 adrift. He's only got 1 more than René Rast, who's got 118, and has won 2 of his 3 championship titles here at Hockenheim in the final race of the season. So he's been here before. He's bought the T-shirt. He knows how to do it. And there he is at the head of the queue. And then you've got Thomas Preining, who is the driver on form. He's been outscoring everybody over the last 3 championship weekends. And he got that sensational win in race 2 at the Red Bull Ring to become the first ever Austrian driver to win a DTM race in Austria. He's 4th on 116 points. So he's only 3 points behind Lucas Auer, and he's only 14 points behind the championship leader. Then you've got Mirko Bortolotti, who's been struggling to pick up big points of late, but he hit that recent podium finish in the first race at the Red Bull Ring. He had more podiums than anybody in the first half of the season, and he's still very much a threat, the Italian driver, on 114 points. Interestingly, of the top 5 drivers in the championship, they're from 5 different nationalities. Sheldon, a South African, Lucas from Austria, René from Germany, Thomas, also from Austria, Mirko Bortolotti from Italy, of course. You've still mathematically got Lukas Stolz in 6th, Nico Müller in 7th, Dennis Olsen in 8th, Kelvin van der Linde, who was on pole position for both races here last year, in 9th place, and Maxi Götz, the reigning champion, in 10th place, who could still win the championship, but their odds are slim. They'd need a fantastic weekend, almost a perfect weekend, and they'd need for the contenders at the head of the points to all have bad weekends. But there are 56 points between the top 10 in the championship, and there are still 58 points available. You can get 25 points for a race win.
Radio check once again. Do you hear me? 1-1.
As a bonus point for fastest lap in each race, as long as you finish the race. And, of course, qualifying, which is going to be absolutely immense tomorrow morning, will deliver out another potential 3 points to one of the drivers as well. 3 points for pole, 2 points for second, and a point if you qualify in 3rd place. So you're on board there with Thomas Preining, one of the drivers that's in contention for this championship fight in the drivers' standings. There's also, of course, the Teams Championship, and particularly the Manufacturers Championship. They're absolutely wide open as well. You've got Schubert Motorsport, who run Sheldon van der Linde and Philip Eng, and in their first season of DTM, they lead by 43 points. With 2 cars to count in the Teams Championship, there's 96 points potentially available still in that championship at the start of the weekend. So they're 43 points ahead of AB Sportsline and 56 points clear of reigning champions Red Bull, AlphaTauri, AF Corsa. And then in the Manufacturers Championship, 1 point separates Mercedes-AMG and Audi. Mercedes just edging in front after a great set of results in the second race of the weekend last time out the Red Bull Ring. So it's between those 2. They're the only 2 that can win the Manufacturers Championship. Mercedes on 372 points, Audi on 371 points, as this first 45-minute free practice session gets underway then here at Hockenheim as we get set this weekend for the 15th and 16th rounds of the DTM Championship. 14 races so far, 10 different winners. That tells the story of just how close this championship has been. And could it come down to count back? Could we get a tie? If it does, then it will be the driver that's won the most races. So at the moment is Sheldon van der Linde with 3. If you time the number of race wins, it's who's got the most seconds, then down to the most thirds, and so on and so forth. And wouldn't be at all surprised if it's that tight at the end of the season, at the end of the weekend. So the car's heading out onto this 4.574 kilometre long circuit here at Hockenheim, which has a bit of everything. High speed on that run down through Parabolica and down towards the heavy braking zone, and the big overtaking opportunity of the lap, really, which comes at the Spitzkara hairpin. You've got the grandstand section where I was watching from this morning, which is a great view for the crowd, which is already starting to build here, even though it's early doors on the weekend. A fair few people filling the grandstands already. I think it's going to be a busy one here at Hockenheim. But that's a twisty infield section as well. You've got some pretty brave right-hand corners early on in the lap as well, like the Nordkurve. And you've got to get good traction here. That's absolutely key. Audi will be hopeful. Kelvin van der Linde, double pole last year, a winner of one of the races in 2021 as well. But so too will Mercedes. It was the penultimate round of last season, and the second race victory of last year's Hockenheim weekend went to Lucas Auer, who's another of the championship contenders. So Sheldon van der Linde there coming through shot with this championship lead. David Schumacher, who's looking for his first championship points of the weekend. And all the focus, of course, is going to be on the championship contenders. But could it be somebody else that steals the glory this weekend and potentially picks up a race win? Maybe we'll get an 11th different winner of the season. All the key championship contenders carrying the onboard cameras then this weekend, as you can see. Also note to say we've got a different driver, somebody else making a DTM debut this weekend, albeit a very experienced driver. It's Christian Engelhardt, who's coming at the last minute in the number 92 SSR Performance Porsche to make his DTM debut, because Lawrence Van Toor is concentrating now on next year and developing the works prototype, the LMDH car. So Lawrence, who's had a tough season, drops out of this final weekend, but he has a very respectable replacement in Christian Engelhardt, who is a driver that's actually spent a lot of time over the recent years racing with Mirko Bortolotti, one of your championship contenders this year. Won the Blancpain Endurance Championship as a pair back in 2017 with the Grasser Racing team, Gottfried Grasser's team, who had a really successful first year in the DTM. Raced with them for a number of years. He's raced in the GT World Challenge. It was the ADAC GT Masters Championship with SSR Performance a couple of years ago in 2020 alongside Michael Ammermüller. So Christian Engelhardt, see how he gets on his DTM debut, but as I say, carrying lots of experience. The 35-year-old Bavarian is on board there with Thomas Preining. You see the car building up now to around about 250 kilometres an hour, pushing up top gear and then down from sixth gear at just under 265 kilometres an hour, all the way down to about 50 kilometres an hour through that hairpin. It's a huge braking zone. Back up from first gear, second, third, through the right-hander, absolutely nails that. Already here pushing 230 kilometres an hour and slowing it down through the left turn. Nice smooth stuff here from Thomas Preining, who, as I say, has been absolutely on fire of late. Of the title contenders, he's the one with the best form coming into the weekend in his first season of DTM. 2 race wins. Now got that historic first ever win for Porsche in the first his first weekend racing DTM at the very complex Norris Ring, in terms of trying to get through the traffic and the chaos of the Norris Ring. It's a bit of a lottery, that street circuit, but he got Porsche's first ever win, and he won again, as I say, at the Red Bull Ring, and he had that fantastic battle, if you watched it in race 1 at the Red Bull Ring, with Nico Müller. So form-wise, Thomas Preining, who you're on board with now, in the last 2 weekends has picked up 67 points. René Rast of the title contenders is the next best, 37. So he's got 30 more points over the last 4 races than René Rast. Lucas Auer has picked up 33. Lucas Stoltz has picked up 29. Mirko Bortolotti 24. And Sheldon van der Linde, championship leader, has only picked up 20 points over the last 2 weekends. So Thomas Preining has outscored Sheldon van der Linde by 47 points over the last 4 races to really drag himself into title contention. Mention Lucas Stoltz because with another podium finish at the Red Bull Ring, he's just outside the top 5. Dark horse, but don't entirely rule the German out of the championship fight this weekend either. Right, this is a wide moment for Rolf in Eischen and takes out one of the Scheffler advertising hoardings. Dirties the tyres, runs wide, but gets it back on track. So pushing hard here early on in the race. A driver that's picked up 1 championship point so far this season. You've got René Rast and his teammate there, Kelvin van der Linde. You've also got Ricardo Feller running under the ABT Sportsline banner just in the background there. And Kelvin set the best first sector of the session so far. He's on a good lap here. Lukas Stoltz is quickest at the moment in the Mercedes with the 138.1, but this, I think, is going to get into the 137s, maybe even a mid 137. Bortolotti and Miney on pretty good laps as well as they build up the pace now, pushing it wide, and then comes back to the commentary box window with René Rast just ahead, going second. And actually, Lukas Stoltz stays at the top of the times. Bortolotti's just gone 4th quickest with the 138.3. Nobody yet has quite broken into the 1 minute 37s. And already, lap times have been cancelled for track limits. First one to come up on the screen is, Christian Engelhardt. And Kelvin van der Linde lost his lap time for track limits at turn 1 on that lap, which is why, although it looked like a good lap, he never quite put him at the top of the times. So turn 1, which is always the suspect here, the Nordkurve, because there's such a big runoff area these days. They go all 4 wheels over the white lines, and that's exceeding the track limits. René Rast, though, is on a good start to the lap here. You're on board with the 3-time champion now, who is testing here this week. So getting focused on this big championship push. And for the team as well, a big weekend coming up for ABT Sportsline, not just for the championship and the Drivers' Championship title, but the first race at Hockenheim here tomorrow is going to be the team's 300th DTM race. No other team has remained in the championship all the way through, uninterrupted since 2000. The DTM was reformed. The team had its first ever DTM race here back in May 2020. Back then, they were a privateer team. Had 3 bright yellow Audi TTs. They lined up at the back of the grid with Laurent Aiello, Christian Abt and Chris Nissen as the drivers. But it was only 2 years later that they came through, won their first ever drivers' title with Aiello in 2002. And since then, the ABT Sportsline team has got 73 DTM victories, 5 drivers' titles and 5 teams' titles. So they know how to deal with the pressure that is inevitably going to be upon them this weekend. Well, Bortolotti, who you're on board with now, has gone to the top of the times in this free practice session for now and is the first driver to break into the 1 minute 37s, 137.858, nearly 2/10 up on Lukas Stoltz. René Rast third, and Christian Engelhardt goes second. So he's just gone through across the start-finish line in the SSR Performance Porsche. And it could be a factor this weekend because we know the Porsche has been a quick car. SSR Performance, pretty young team still, but they've achieved some great things already. And Christian's a very, very experienced driver. Knows the car, knows this type of car, just not with the Michelin tyres. It is also worth pointing out, though, because it's his first weekend in DTM, he will get 1 extra set of tyres to use across the course of the weekend, 5 sets instead of 4. So he'll get fresher tyres in this free practice. So it might be that he'll be up there in free practice, but it might be a different story when we get to qualifying tomorrow. But worth noting that if Engelhardt is up there in the points this weekend, he'll score the points. He's not a guest driver because he's driving a car that's already entered into the championship. Right, this is coming through the final turn with Thomas Preininger, who took a lot of curb on the inside there. That sent him out wide and just through that gravel trap with the left side of the car. Just a little bit wide, exploring and finding the limits, but that is what you need to do in free practice. Got it all gathered back up nicely when he got to the Nordkurve. And they can see the back end of the Porsche, low slung, pushing on for the former Porsche Carrera Cup Deutschland champion. Bortolotti, having set the fastest lap of the session, has gone into the pits now. René Rast has gone into the pits with him. Alessio De Leda, Kelvin van der Linde and Philip Eng all in the pits. So we've not yet seen a lap time from Philip in the Schubert Motorsport car. Could he play a big role this weekend to try and help out Sheldon van der Linde, who's just gone across the start-finish line and has recorded his best time of the session so far, but Sheldon only at the moment in 14th place. A huge, huge qualifying session tomorrow. You need to be in the mix up there somewhere, and trying to get consistent race results has been tough this year. Trying to get consistent qualifying results has, in a sense, been even tougher for the drivers. If you find yourself down in 15th, 16th, 17th place on the grid as a championship contender, you're going to have a real battle on your hands. You get the sense you just need to try and score points in both races, but you're probably going to have one big result this weekend if you're in that championship fight. It's a couple of 8th places or 6th and 8th, something like that. It's not really going to do it. You suspect one of them's going to have to try and win at least one race, or especially those trying to catch up Sheldon van der Linde. He's got this advantage of 11 points. But the advantage has been dwindled over the last few weekends. He's only picked up one podium finish in the last 2 weekends. That's 2nd place at Spa. He qualified well at the Red Bull Ring in the top 6, but had a 9th-place grid penalty on Sunday because of track limits offences in race 1. I'm going to try and avoid that as well, and already the list is becoming long. We've got 12 or 13 drivers that have lost lap times due to track limits, and it is either at turn 1 or at turn 10 where that's all been happening. So Sheldon van der Linde still out there, just coming through to complete another pretty handy looking lap. This should be an improvement for him, or maybe not, because personal best in sector 1 and sector 2, they just fell away a little bit in sector 3. Lost, well, actually sector 3 time was 8/10 slower than Bortolotti's sector 3 time. Bortolotti's been quicker than everybody else at the end of the lap divided up into 3. So you can see how they're all getting on early on in the lap. So sector 1 takes in turn 1 at the Nordkurve, takes in the run through turn 2, and then the exit to turn 2. Sector 2 is the Parabolica, the hairpin at Spitzkehre, which is turn 6, up towards turn 7, 8, 9 and 10 through that sequence of corners there. The lefts, or the double left and the right, and then the 3rd sector basically takes in the run up towards the arena section, the Mobile 1 curve, the Sachs curve and the Sud curve at the end of the lap. The middle sector being the longest sector in terms of time. That is around about half of the lap, 45 seconds or so. So that's the one you've got to absolutely nail to get a quick lap. Well, as you can see from the graphic, we've got most of the top 10 currently in the pits, having a bit of a breather. The new livery for this weekend is Marius Zug, who's looking for his first championship points as well, but was on the money, albeit in very different conditions here at Hockenheim in the pre-season test day, the media day, where he was up the top of the times. Pretty mucky, greasy, cold, damp day, but there's definitely some pace there. Hopefully Marius will come back for a 2nd season of DTM next year and see how he gets on in the Attempter Racing Audi. Whoa, way out wide there goes Sheldon van der Linde, all 4 wheels over the curbs. So that could be a lap time loss potentially for track limits. But he's pushing on, currently in 13th place. Best lap was his last lap, 1 minute 38.691 seconds. And there we have in the number 10 BMW for Volkenhorst Motorsport on his 2nd weekend now in the DTM. Standing in for Esteban Moot is Leon Kohler, who was impressive, certainly on the Friday free practice sessions. And, you know, he's up there in terms of his pace in the qualifying sessions. Very, very wet qualifying that we had in the first qualifying session 2 weeks ago in Austria. And in the race, managing to get himself up kind of in the mix in the middle of the pack, which is impressive. It's another one that hasn't done the whole season, but will be eligible for championship points because he's not a guest driver. He's driving Esteban Moot's pre-registered car, trying to help out Marco Wittmann, who's had a difficult season, difficult end to last season for Marco, and he was for most of the year a championship contender. It all kind of fell away for him the last couple of weekends. Didn't have a great Hockenheim, but it's never quite got going this year for Marco. The BMW M4 GT3 introduced to DTM this year. So Volkenhorst with their 2 BMWs. Leon just 23 years of age there in the number 10 car, blue and black machine. And former Porsche Super Cup racer, 5th in the championship last year, 3rd in the Porsche Carrera Cup Deutschland. He's raced in Porsches in the Middle East as well, in the Sprint Challenge Middle East Championship for a couple of seasons. Single-seaters prior to that. His car racing debut actually was only 4 years ago in the FIA Formula 4 Championship. He won on his debut, and also then raced with Muka Motorsport, Peter Muka's team, in the German Formula 4 Championship for that full season. Former German karting and European karting champion. So a very talented young driver, Leon Kohler. We'll see how he gets on his 2nd weekend. Another quick young driver David Schumacher has bailed for the pits, so it's a pretty quiet track at the moment, although Whitman, Cassidy, Kelvin van der Linde and Philippe Eng still to register a lap time haven't been out yet. In fact, De Leyder and Kelvin van der Linde haven't really put a lap time in yet either. Kelvin did one quick lap, but it was taken away for track limits. As we ride on board now with Lucas Auer, who's, whatever happens this year, looking like he's going to have his best championship finish of his career so far in DTM. Made his DTM debut back in 2015. And the Euronics BVT Mercedes, and finished 5th in the championship last year. One of the drivers that adapted really well, especially the second half of the season, where he was on fire for GT3 racing. And he's carried that through now. Still only 28. The driver from St. Johann, already with so much experience. Started out in single-seaters in Formula 3 racing, where he was a real frontrunner with teams like Prema and Muga Motorsport, and then settled down to a very successful career in DTM. All looks very smooth, but he is a real attacking driver. You see some great moves from Luke. You see some great starts from him as well. What can he do this weekend? He's one of the drivers you know he's going to go for it. And that's the only advantage of being a bit down, a bit behind in the points. Sheldon van der Linde, he's got something to protect for the others, like Auer and Rast and Preining and Bortolotti. Can kind of just go for it and keep the pressure up. Bortolotti in particular, who's got the most ground to make up of those key title contenders. They've all had bad luck here and there. Lucas Auer, the most recent batch of bad luck for him was in that first race where at Spa, where he was definitely on course for a podium finish and then picked up a puncture after a pit stop cost him time as well. But they've all got these stories of races where they should have scored more points, could have scored more points. But he's up there. And just the one race win so far this year, in the very first race of the season at Portimao. But he's picked up 3 podium finishes. He's picked up lots of point scoring finishes. He's only had a couple of DNFs. And that consistency has got him up there, and he's well capable of winning. As I say, a winner here in race 2 at Hockenheim last year. So Auer pushing on. Bortolotti's back on track. Christian Engelhardt's gone into the pits. They're the top 2. Lucas Stoltz, 3rd quickest, and René Rast, 4th quickest, have just gone back out on track. Robin Eichen doing well at the moment in 5th. He's in the pits. Lucas Auer, you're watching now, or we're watching, in 6th place he is. And his best lap times are 1:38.337, just under half a second adrift of the fastest time so far. Felipe Fraga, the latest driver to lose a lap time due to track limits. That was a turn 11. So what Kelvin van der Linde can do now. Wonder what sort of awkward situation he might end up in this weekend, because on one hand he's got his brother fighting for the championship, but his brother's not his teammate. He's not even driving for the same manufacturer. And of course, another of the championship contenders is his teammate. He's driving an Audi, and that is René Rast. It'd be a nightmare scenario in a way for Kelvin if he finds himself in the middle of them or around them somewhere. And what he can try to do, though, is end what's been a frustrating year at times with a real push, try and get himself a win. And he's gone fastest on that first counting lap. Did a quick one earlier that was lost to track limits. How wide they go there on the run through turn 1. Lucas Auer just in front of him, who on his last lap did a 1:38.9, but that was a 1:37.6 for Kelvin van der Linde. Personal best in sectors 1 and 2, an absolute best in sector 3, and he's pushing on this lap as well, coming out of the Parabolica, kicking up the dust all over the curbs in the Audi. Going out through the Parabolica, and he's done another absolute best first sector. So Kelvin van der Linde, race winner here last year, looking good. His 31st race start in the DTM tomorrow, on his 2nd season of DTM, already 4 wins and 6 podiums to his name. Key championship contender, of course, last year. Nürburgring, or double Nürburgring 24-hour race winner, and a former GT Masters champion as well. Started out in the VW Polo Cup, or the VW Cup in South Africa, which he was a champion as well in 2011 and 2012, before he came across to Europe for the first time 9 years ago now, in 2013, racing in one of the support series to DTM, the now defunct VW Sirocco R Cup, in which he became the champion. Had to Wait a while to get his debut in DTM, though. So started the lap well, but it's he backed off in the middle sector, so this isn't going to be a quick lap. 45 seconds is what you're looking at for a quick sector 2, and it wasn't up there for that. So pushes on again. Somebody I noticed had taken out, wiped out another of the marker boards on the way into the arena section on the run down to the Sachs curve. So one or two have been pushing on. As you're on board now with the driver in 8th place, Augustin Bernhard, Thomas Preining, and here's another example of somebody pushing a bit too much and going a bit too wide. Felipe Fraga in the Ferrari. René Rast loses a lap time for track limits at turn 1. Had an enormous amount of track limits offences in both free practice sessions 2 weeks ago at the Red Bull Ring. They were all at the end of the lap. This is all at the start of the lap at Hockenheim. But that's what they do. Drivers try to push and find the limits, see what they can and can't get away with. A bit rough over the curbs there for the Mercedes of David Schumacher, who's currently sitting in 25th position. Best lap so far, a 1:39.4, which is best part of 2 seconds off the absolute pace. Busy track again now. We've just got Michael Grenier in the pits. Good to see Michael back in action. Had that massive shunting qualifying right at the start of the very wet qualifying session at the Red Bull Ring, which put him out of the subsequent race on Sunday. So he missed that one, but the Canadian back and in the middle of the pack at the moment. Better lap this from a better second sector from Kelvin van der Linde. Nico Muller's just done a personal best, which is a 10th down on Kelvin van der Linde's first sector time, and is a 10th down in the second sector as well, but a lap time which ought to put him at the moment in the top 6, I would think, Nico Muller. So we'll see what he can do. Still mathematically eager with the championship title as well. Kelvin van der Linde with that lap being a 1:37.686. His best was a 1:37.652. So that's only 34 thousandths of a second away from his best lap of the session. And he'll be pleased that he's got more than one quick lap in him. And Muller does go into the top 6 with that lap. So the Team Rosberg Audi driver, 226, but I think the lap's going to be taken away from him for track limits. Looking at the time of the screen message that comes up. He has got an early 1:38.155 though, which will keep him in the top 6. So van der Linde, Bortolotti, Kelvin van der Linde that is, Mirko Bortolotti, Christian Engelhardt still going well there in 3rd place, Lucas Stoltz in 4th, René Rast in 5th, Nico Muller in 6th, Rolf Eischen 7th, Lucas Auer 8th, Thomas Preining, Arjun Maini and Maro Engel, who got his first ever pole position last time out in the DTM at the Red Bull Ring in that super wet qualifying session. They are your front-running drivers as it stands. Maro Engel just slipping back to 11th place. Quickest driver on track at the moment is Dennis Olsen, who's just done a 1:38.598. That's notwithstanding Kelvin van der Linde, who's still the only one at the moment able to circulate in the 1:37s. But a much, much busier track. Great shots here of giving you just a sense of speed that these cars generate around the circuit. And the Audis, 5.2 litre V10 engines, they produce around about 585 brake horsepower. And there is Dennis Olsen on the frustrating weekend at the Norris Ring after really, really impressive race victory at Spa. See, Kelvin van der Linde has come into the pits and is in the technical check area at the moment, so he's just being pushed onto the weighing scales, which will cost him a little bit of time. So a run of 4 or 5 laps there for Kelvin van der Linde, including 2 really good ones. Watching now on screen the number 51 of Nico Muller, who's signed up now to, well, aim potentially towards more of an endurance racing career as a Peugeot Works driver, parting company after many successful years and 2 near championship titles in the DTM, twice the runner-up to René Rast, parting company with Audi at the end of this season. As into the pits comes the championship leader, Sheldon van der Linde. Just gives us a sense of where drivers might be when we get to qualifying tomorrow, but it's definitely not the be-all and end-all, because you don't know what fuel loads they're running, what level of tyre wear they've got on the tyres they're using, and also what they're trying with the setup. Because it's not, I mean, qualifying is going to be massive. It's almost pointless having a great race car if you only qualify 2/3 of the way through down the field. So you've got to have a car which you know is going to give you a chance in qualifying. But equally, no point having a car which qualifies well and then slips back in the race. So you've got to work on your race setup as well. Try and figure out what the tyre wear is like over longer duration and how the setup of the car works as well. So they're on board with the South African Sheldon van der Linde, leading the championship with those 3 wins this season. Mirko Bortolotti still seeking his first DTM race victory, and with Lamborghini, the only manufacturer in the championship this year that's yet to win a race in DTM. Took them to the first podium when he drove or came in for one weekend at Assen last season, middle of the season. And so plenty more podiums since then. 2nd place, 3rd places, but never quite the race victory. But he's going to be going for it this weekend, and it should be fun to watch, Mirko. And of course, he's new to DTM, but he's not new to fighting for a championship, Mirko Bortolotti. As I say, former Blancpain GT champion. Been there before, and he'll be as cool as a cucumber, I think. Opportunities come, he'll go for it. And so too, Thomas Preining. I mean, he won fairly comfortably the championship title when he was the Porsche Carrera Cup Deutschland champion a few years ago. But he knows how to get the job done and finished off. So he might be young, he might be new to DTM, but he's the one who must be absolutely bursting with confidence at the moment. The Austrian, I think, won a lot of fans with his racecraft and his sheer entertainment at the Red Bull Ring 2 weeks ago. Very proud moment for him and the family to take that victory in race 2. As René Rast seems to have the track to himself at the moment. 5th place currently, 38.093 seconds for René Rast. As I say, as one of the drivers has been out here testing, 2 days of testing here last week at Hockenheim. And there, Lucas Auer looking like he's getting ready to go back out. He slipped back to 8th place currently. But pace is pretty good. 0.6 of a second off the absolute best lap time. If you take away Kelvin van der Linde, you've only got actually half a second covering all the drivers from 2nd down to 12th place. And it's not been unusual this season to have 20, 22, 23 drivers covered by less than a second once we get to qualifying, or indeed in practice sessions. Nick Cassidy looks like he's on a push. That's another on-form driver. He's just going over the start-finish line. It's his personal best lap, but it's only a 1:39.1. Still a 2.5 off the pace. The other Ferrari of Felipe Fraga is 19th, slightly higher up the order. So there is Nick Cassidy. And remember, he's not a championship contender, but he's very much capable of being up there in the mix this weekend. A Ferrari on the podium with Liam Lawson last year, so the Ferrari is capable around this circuit of picking up results. Nick's only 12th in the championship, but remember, he's missed 2 weekends, he's missed 4 races, but he's won 2 of the last 4 races. Race 2 at Spa being his first DTM victory, and he picked up an historic race victory at the Red Bull Ring because it was the 500th victory for the Ferrari 488 GT3 car. 500th victory in all championships, and Nick Cassidy got it in that DTM victory at the Red Bull Ring. So he's one of these drivers that could be a dark horse this weekend for a race victory. Well, not so much a dark horse really, because he's got the form to do it. He's a hugely accomplished driver with Super GT and Japanese F3 titles under his belt. Formula E racer, of course, as well for the last couple of years, which is why he's had to miss a couple of the DTM rounds this season. But he'll be up there in the Ferrari, I'm pretty sure of it. And I've got to keep an eye on these drivers because, as I say, naturally all the focus goes towards the championship contenders, but it might actually be somebody else taking the big points away from them, somebody like Nick Cassidy. Although you have to say, with 10 drivers mathematically that can still win the championship title, that getting on for half the field that still have a chance, but I think will be whittled down after that first race tomorrow. Maybe even after qualifying with the 3 points there. So Nick Cassidy trying to get himself up the order, creeping up a bit more, 22nd quickest now, but still behind his teammate Felipe Fraga, who is a little bit quicker in 19th. 1:38.958 for Felipe and a 1:39.0 for Nick. They tend to focus on getting the car set up for the races in free practice more than pure pace as we look at former champion Marquette Whitman, the DTM title holder in 2014 and 2016. 15th quickest at the moment. 138.679 is his best, but we've got 4 drivers on the 138.6s, so it's, as ever, very tight in the midfield. Back out is Sheldon van der Linde, just building up speed. He's just gone back out. Marius Zug, Maximilian Buch and David Schumacher have all just rejoined, but as the bulk of the top 15 in the pits at the moment, including the top 4, Kelvin van der Linde, Mirko Bortolotti, Christian Engelhardt and Lucas Stoltz. So in terms of drivers that are currently on track, Mikel Grenier is going pretty well. He's cracked up to 7th place now, just on a personal best of 138.2. So he's the quickest man on track at the moment. And then you've got Nick Cassidy creeping up as well, low 139 last time around. As we look now at number 11, Marquette Whitman. As I say, a season that's never quite got going. He had a string of 5 consecutive points finishes, but they were sort of towards the tail end of the top 10, not really making an impression in the championship. That came to an end when he was out of the points in race 1 and then race 2. Didn't get any points at the Red Bull Ring. One podium finish this year came at Imola in race 2, and apart from that, we had a 4th place in the second race at Portimao, 4th place in race 2 at Norris Ring, and then all the other points finishes he's had have been towards the tail end of the top 10. You can see for a Friday morning, Friday afternoon now, quite a few in the grandstands already here, which suggests it's going to be a very busy one once we get to race day tomorrow. Now, Marco Wittmann bails for the pits. The most recent driver to lose a lap time for track limits is Clement Schmidt in the Grasser Racing Team run Lamborghini, number 85. And just going through is Clements with a 138.368, so he's done his best lap of the session after losing a lap through track limits. So he's kept it within the boundaries this time, and that's not a bad lap at all to put him into 11th place. And big weekend this for Schubert Motorsport as well, not only going for the Drivers' Championship with Sheldon van der Linde, but also for the Teams' Championship. The team manager Marcel Schmidt the build-up to the weekend said this final race weekend is definitely going to be our greatest challenge. We had a fantastic first season in the DTM, and we'd never have dreamed of being in this position before the finale. The high level of the championship has brought out the best in us, he said. So Marcel Schmidt and all the team at Schubert pushing on with a not insurmountable but a pretty healthy 43-point lead in the Teams' Championship. One of the young drivers, well, 2 of them really. Sheldon van der Linde's been around a while, but he's still a young driver in his early 20s. But Marius Sugg just behind him, still a teenager. Another quick Bavarian from Pfaffenhofen in Bavaria in the south of Germany. He's 19 years of age. He actually signed the DTM contract on his 19th birthday, so that's quite a good present. And started GT racing when he was just 16 years of age, won his first ever GT4 race. And spent the last couple of seasons in the Italian GT Championship, where he was a real front runner. Finished 5th in the 2020 Championship aboard a BMW. Both seasons he was in the BMW. It was run by Roberto Ravaglia, the former DTM champion, and he's a former German karting champion as well. As we turn attentions to the driver that is just ahead of him on the road, championship leader Sheldon van der Linde. Currently down in 17th place now in this session, with his brother at the top of the times. The 23-year-old then from Johannesburg pushing on. He's going to have his 69th and 70th race starts this weekend. So there's 4 wins, 3 of them this season. He made his DTM debut a few years ago now, back in 2020. And then Arjun Maini had a good weekend at the Red Bull Ring. Save of the day, where he got hit and then got completely sideways and somehow managed to save it. Got his equal best result of the season so far, with a 4th place finish. He's going well. He's just put himself up to 2nd place. So 137.856 with personal bests in sectors 1 and 2. Just lost a little bit of time, but not much in the final sector. Did a 30.9. So lost about a tenth and a half to Kelvin van der Linde there. But everywhere else, he pretty much matched him. So he goes second. That puts Bortolotti down to third. He's just rejoined the circuit. Engelhardt is down to fourth. Lucas Stoltz has rejoined the circuit from the pit lane just now. He's in fifth place. And Marius Zug has just put himself into the top six. New livery's working then. So the 19-year-old with a 138.068 personal best in sector 2 and sector 3 as well. Lap time cancelled for Christian Engelhardt. Lap time cancelled for Kelvin van der Linde. There's Ricardo Feller just about keeping it on the road, going out as wide as he dares on the exit to the hairpin as he gets on the gas. One of the 10 different race winners that we've had this season. Got his breakthrough victory mid-season at Imola, but his results have been a bit lacklustre for him since then. At the moment he's back in 19th place, but has just set the absolute best first sector time. So Ricardo Feller looking like he's going to shoot up the order here. He's got a clear track in front of him. He's done a personal best in sector 2, which is not very far away from the absolute best, which is a 45.8 as well. So he's almost matched Kelvin van der Linde through sector 2. He's a bit quicker than him through sector 1. And you can see pushing that Audi as wide as he dares now. Just coming into the right-hander at the Sud curve, double right-hand apex turn. Looks good. Look at the commentary box window. He carries the speed, runs to the edge of the circuit, keeps two wheels on the curbs. And this is going to be a really good lap here from Ricardo Feller. Puts him fifth. So fifth place, just losing out a tiny bit on that last sector by a tenth and a half. But Ricardo Feller, if he can find another tenth of a second, would be into the top 2. So that shoots him up the order. Sheldon van der Linde's on a pretty decent lap here as well. This is going to improve his position. Indeed it does, up to 11th place in this first free practice session with just over 7 minutes to go now. Important for these drivers to glean as much information as they can during these practice sessions, and for the teams, pour through the data and just figure things out. The weather looks, as I say, like it's going to be pretty consistent this weekend. Track temperature's pretty warm. As I say, it's 22 degrees, the track temperature. The air temperature's just over 16 degrees, so above average for the time of year. A bit of a twitch there for the Ferrari of Felipe Fraga, who slipped back to 23rd place now. Teammate Nick Cassidy down to 26, as others have improved. We had personal best lap times last time around for Zug, Feller, who I think is going to lose this next lap time for track limits at turn 1, I think. And then also the personal best last time around was Fraga, which is why he's now gone 15th. So Sheldon van der Linde, 14th, just ahead of the Ferrari. Going for a longer run here. Big heavy car, the BMW, not the heaviest, but up there in terms of the BOP balance and success. The BOP ballast that's going on the cars at the start of the weekend. The Audis will carry 25 kilograms. Nothing for the BMWs. Ferrari's 35, Porsche's 5, Lamborghini's 40, and Mercedes 10 kilograms. That's the BOP ballast that is carried on the cars at the start of the weekend, but that can change 2 or 3 times over the course of the weekend to try and equal things out. And then of course when we get to the race tomorrow, the top 3 from the previous race will have to carry success ballast, 25, 15 and 5 kilograms respectively for the top 3 from the previous race. So that's one factor that's going to come into play as well, with Thomas Preining, championship contender, having won the second race at the Red Bull Ring, will have 25 kilograms on board his Cuse Team Bernhard Porsche for race 1. Lucas Stoltz, who's just outside the top 5 in the championship, was second, so he'll have the 15 kilograms. Maro Engel, who's not a real title contender, third in the race last time out, so he will carry just 5 kilograms of success ballast. You don't have to use it in qualifying, you do have to put it on the car in the race. Speak of the devil, here he is, Tommy Preining, former European karting champion, former Porsche Carrera Cup Deutschland champion. Last couple of seasons spent competing in the ADAC GT Masters Championship. Very much a Porsche man. With a special tribute helmet to the late great Walter Lechner. A very proud moment for him 2 weeks ago in Austria, especially then taking that helmet and that car to that race victory. He's second in the DTM. So his last 5 races, he's had a first, 2 thirds, a 5th and a 7th, which is why he suddenly vaulted up to 4th in the championship. After the first couple of rounds of the championship, he was back in, I think it was 17th or 18th place in the points, and suddenly here he is right up there. And looking quick here, up to second place now with that Porsche. 1:37.668 is his best. It's only 16 thousandths of a second away from Kelvin van der Linde as Lucas Auer improves his time, 7th quickest for the Austrian. So we've now got 8 drivers in the 1:37s. Kelvin van der Linde, Tommy Priding, Mirko Bortolotti, Lucas Stoltz, Arjun Maini, Christian Engelhardt, Lucas Auer and Marius Serg, who's just gone into the pits. All in the 1:37s. 1:37.6s for the top 2, 1:37.8 for Bortolotti, Stoltz, Maini and Engelhardt. And then just about in the 1:37s for Auer and Zerg in the 1:37.9s. And now we've got just 9/10 of a second between the top 20, which is a pretty typical DTM gap this year. Really looking forward to qualifying tomorrow, given how close the qualifying sessions have been this year. The average gap between the top 2 in qualifying has been 1/10 of a second this year, but the smallest gaps, we've had the van der Linde brothers split by 10 thousandths of a second in qualifying. As at the Nürburgring, we've had a gap of 16 thousandths of a second and a gap of 25 thousandths of a second as well. We're talking millimetres out on the track, the difference between being on pole and not being on pole position. Priding pushing on, started the lap well, not a bad second sector but not outstanding. Not sure he's going to improve his lap time here, but it'll be a pretty good lap, 1:37.8 to go with the 1:37.6 he did on the previous lap. Lucas Auer pushing on as well at the start of his lap, and quicker than him, Marco Wittmann. Now this is going to be the first real attempt at a flying lap from Marco Wittmann, and it's going to be a good one here. Look at the sector times, and 4th place for Marco. Excellent stuff in the Volkenhorst BMW. So Henry Volkenhorst and the team will be pleased with that. 1:37.823 seconds. That's only 8 thousandths of a second away from Bortolotti, who is currently 3rd quickest. Lucas Auer did his best lap of the session last time round as well, just with the 1:37.867. Only 5 thousandths of a second away from Christian Engelhardt, who slipped back to 7th place now. René Rast currently 13th. He's on an out lap. He's just gone back out. Also rejoining Maxi Buch, Michael Grenier, Rolf Inayschen, David Schumacher and Leon Kohler have all just gone back out. As Lucas Stoltz comes into the pits, and one of the Rosberg Audis comes in, which is Dev Gore. I can see out of the commentary box window. The track temperature continuing to increase up to 23 degrees now. So that'll be a factor when they get to the second free practice session this afternoon, which is going to be local time starting at 3:50. So we'll give you coverage of that 5 minutes before from 3:45 p.m. local time here in Germany. It's just coming up to 5-1, which means we're in the final minute of the session here as we turn our attentions to Nick Cassidy and then to the pit lane and to Arjun Maini. So pit stop practice here for the team. Change the rears, change the fronts, and away they go. And that all didn't have a clock on it, but it all looked pretty handy. We've seen some pit stop times under 7 seconds have been the real quick ones that we've seen so far this year. HRT, though, who run Arjun Maini, they've been really good with their pit stops this year. And right up there in amongst them, Rolf Inayschen and now Mirko Bortolotti in the garages end their session then with no further time on track. And you can see we've got multiple onboard cameras on Mirko's car, and I think that'll probably give us lots of entertainment this weekend, because he's going to absolutely go for it, the Italian, try to catch up that points gap. And there we've got Riccardo Feller in as well. It's going to end, it looks like, in the top 10. The flag is now out on the session, but from fairly early on, first half of the session, Kelvin van der Linde is going to top the times in free practice one with that 1:37.652, but it's only 16 thousandths quicker than Tommy Priding. So for the championship contenders, well, hard to work out how this will all impact the weekend, but Sheldon van der Linde, 18th place, he's the championship leader. Lucas Auer, second in the championship, was 8th in that session. René Rast, 13th, he's 3rd in the championship. Thomas Priding, the only one really up there from the championship contenders, apart from Mirko Bortolotti. They were 2nd and 3rd. And Lucas Stoltz, who's kind of sneaking under the radar a bit. I mean, he's only 28 points behind the championship leader with 58 still available. Lucas Stoltz up there as well, 5th.
For you for the pit stop without pull away, no pull away.
So team radio, René Rast, pit stop practice, but he won't actually leave the pits. They're just going to do pit stop practice. And these pit stops are going to be big pressure on the teams as well. I'm coming, says Rene. They'll see him, they'll be ready for him. And the 6 crew members there, only 4 of whom can work on the tyre changes. And they want to get that absolutely right as well. Every second in the pit stops is going to count this weekend. Lose a second or 2 in the pits, that takes a long time for the drivers to make it back up when you've got only these tiny margins between the front runners in the championship. So the first free practice session complete then here at this championship finale weekend with Kelvin van der Linde, who was a winner here last year, fastest 1:37.65 seconds, just ahead of Thomas Preining by 16 thousandths of a second. Bortolotti up there as well as another championship contender. A late lap from Marquette Whitman putting him in 4th, Lucas Stoltz 5th, Arjun Maini in 6th, and then the rest of the top 10, Engelhardt, Auer, Zug and Feller. Clement Schmidt is going to be pretty happy with that session as well. In 11th, Felipe Fraga improved late on to 12th. René Rast, another championship contender, was 13th, with Nico Muller, Maxi Buch, Michael Grenier, Rolfin Eichen, Sheldon van der Linde, Dennis Olsen and Maro Engel rounding out the top 20. So then some super slow-mos from that 45-minute free practice session. Pushing on early doors was Kelvin van der Linde. He had an early lap which was disallowed for track limits, but then he put in 2 really good lap times, the best of which put him to the top of the times with a 1:37.652 seconds. He's not yet out of the championship, but he's a real outsider. But remember, quick enough to get a double pole position here at Hockenheim. He'll be hoping to do more of the same this weekend. And a reminder of the championship standings as we look forward to free practice 2 this afternoon. Sheldon van der Linde with 11 points, just 11 points over Lucas Auer. René Rast only a point behind him. And then Thomas Preining, Mirko Bortolotti, all very much in the mix as well. That's it from me, Chris Hartley, for free practice 1. Thanks very much for watching. Catch you later.